Welcome into the Brave the Attempt podcast. I'm your host, Wyatt Spalding, Special Nebraska athlete. And today we have Madeline Safrit and Rachel McQuiston. I met Madeline and Rachel when I took a storytelling class uh, run by Special Olympics North America and an athlete, RJ Nealon. And these two young ladies were our guest speakers, and I learned a lot about storytelling, reporting in sports, the different kind of reporting you can do in Special Olympics and just sports in general. So I'm happy to have them on the Brady Attempt podcast. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you, Wyatt.
Yeah. So kind of like let's just get into like your guys' journey through sports growing up and then how Special Olympics came uh in your life at either a young age or in your adult lives. Madeline, you want to go first?
Amazing. Well, I did not grow up playing sports or knowing anything about sports for that matter. So I actually grew up doing musical theater. And if you had told me that I would be working for a sports organization, I would not have believed you. But here I am many years later. I actually went to North Carolina State University for my undergrad. And while in school, I interned with Special Olympics North Carolina for their communications department, which Rachel McQuiston was actually leading. So she was my supervisor that summer for my internship. And that was about a decade ago. And as you can see, I liked it. So I decided to stick around. And so I worked for Special Olympics North Carolina after I graduated for about 5 years. And then the past year, I started working for Special Olympics International. And I manage internal communications. So I'm still working on communications, just in a little bit of a different capacity than I was doing with North Carolina. But yes, still a part of the movement and still very happy to be here and still learning about what happens during sports competitions. It's not always easy to follow.
Oh, that's okay.
Madeline, you're
That's
making me feel
okay.
old, Madeline.
Don't worry, Madeline. I play in like this unified basketball league, and we have like some unified players. Like they have no idea what basketball is, but it's really funny. It's like, is it over? It's like that was the first quarter. I'm like,
I think that everyone dreads when it's my turn to kick for unified kickball. So
oh,
I'm not helping our team at all. But I like to think I bring a positive energy.
there you go. We need somebody.
That's true. It's me.
Well, Madeline one made me feel very old by saying that her internship was almost a decade ago, but that's fine. We'll just kind of gloss over that as I talk. So like Madeline, I also was not, huge in sports and playing sports as a kid. I danced for a little while, and then I was a sports fan, right? I wasn't on the field, I was in the stands cheering.
Mhm.
So watched basketball growing up, watched hockey growing up, big sports fan. Really enjoyed just how sports brought people together, how it kind of unified people, regardless of what your cultural background was. Like you could still be a sports fan, right? I separately became involved with Special Olympics when I was probably 8 or 9 years old. So, my father is a pediatric dentist. And when we were growing up in Texas, he got involved with Special Olympics through the Special Smiles screening program. So, he did screenings all over the state of Texas. And I went with him and volunteered. I handed out the goodie bags that you get at the end of the Special Smiles screening, and knew even at that age, just how different Special Olympics was from anything I had experienced before, right? I was 8 or 9 years old, and Wyatt, Madeline, you know what it was like when you were a little kid. Like, people didn't pay any attention to you. You just kind of did your own thing. Like, adults didn't really care, but everyone at Special Olympics wanted to talk to me, right? They wanted to ask me a question. I felt like I had all of these friends from all over the state now, and just I loved the atmosphere of Special Olympics. So, stayed involved as a volunteer kind of throughout my educational career. And then when I was a junior in college, I interned for Special Olympics North Carolina as well in the communications department and just immediately knew that this is where I was supposed to be. I got to marry telling stories about sports and my, sports fandom with my passion for the organization. That was much more than a decade ago. We won't tell you how many years ago that was. That was quite a long time ago, and they have not been able to get rid of me since. So I started as a staff member with North Carolina about a week after I graduated college, and was with North Carolina for about 10-ish years or so, and then moved over to my job now with Special Olympics North America, where I still work in communications, but like Madeline in a slightly different way. I support all of the program marketing and communications staff. So, in Nebraska, North Carolina, Canada, Jamaica, et cetera, I support all of them with their communications needs. So, still get to be involved and still get to tell some stories just in a slightly different way.
Awesome. So like maybe tell us like what kind of like goes on behind the scenes, whether in marketing or telling an athlete story. Because like from my perspective, like oh they interview you and they write story and it comes out, but there's a lot more than just what like the outside world sees. So kind of go into like something that no one would really know and that takes time to put the whole story and marketing together. Rachel, you want to go?
Go, Rachel.
Oh, yeah, sure. So, everyone approaches the way that they tell a story a little bit differently, right? Everyone's process is a little bit different, but I think something that people, who don't tell stories for a living would probably be surprised by is how long it can sometimes take to feel creative, right? And to feel like you are finding the right words. So sometimes a story, and Madeline can say this too, right? Sometimes a story comes to you really quickly, right? Even as you're doing the interview, talking to the person, you're like, oh, I know exactly how to set the scene. I know exactly how to describe things. I know the way I want it to look and the way I want it to read. And then sometimes it takes a little while to get there, right? So that's an area where it takes some extra time sometimes, is making it engaging and making sure that the reader wants to keep reading. And then on the other end of that spectrum is making sure that it's accurate, right? Like that takes some time too. We have to make sure that the years are correct, the ages are correct, everybody's name is spelled properly. If someone mentions that they got a gold medal, we need to know the event, the year, the sport, the division. Like we need to know all of that information. So sometimes that takes a little bit of time, and that kind of fact checking piece isn't something that people always realize goes into even the stories that we're telling about Wyatt or about RJ or about Becca. Like all of those stories need that same level of fact checking.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that there is also a lot of planning that happens on the front end before we even decide to write a story. So thinking about the course of a year within Special Olympics, so much is going on all the time. There are activations happening, there's competitions happening. We have to think about, okay, for Women's History Month, what are we going to be highlighting for World Autism Acceptance Day? What will we be highlighting? So for events that are happening so far in the future, we are already thinking about what those stories could be and how we can start working on them now to make them more relevant when the actual event is happening. So there's so much planning that happens before and so many Excel spreadsheets and so many dates happening. So we're always thinking about the next story, but sometimes, yeah, like Rachel said, it's very organic. It's in the moment. You see something and it has an impact on you. It resonates with you. And that's sometimes where the best stories come from, is the ones you don't plan for. So.
So Madeline, is it hard to get a story out sometimes, or is it pretty easy, or do you have to like convince it to like your boss is like, no, we need to get publish this story because this is a really good one, or like maybe you write one story one week and it doesn't come out for like a couple weeks or a couple months. Has that ever happened before?
Yeah, so luckily my supervisors have always been pretty supportive of the direction I want to take with a story. I will say sometimes that writer's block, I'm not immune to that at all. I don't think any of us are.
Mhm.
I'll start working on a story and I'll get halfway through and think, I don't know how to finish this, or I don't know where the story is going from here. And in those cases, I try to never abandon a story because I think that's just the type A person in me. But in that case, I will then reach out to, if the story is about an athlete, I'll reach out to maybe their coaches or their parents, because I might not have prepared myself with enough material to keep the story going. But sometimes, inevitably, you do have a few stories that will end up being dead ends, and that doesn't mean they're not good stories. It just means that they might not be the right story for a specific platform. So maybe something that I thought was going to be a really long story is now going to be a highlight on social media. So it's just thinking about how we can use that content in the way that it shines best.
Okay. And Rachel, when you do like marketing and stuff, like, do you ever have to like just search for athletes all around, like what athlete would be good, or like a sponsor or something like that? Like, how does that all work?
Yeah, that's such a great question, Wyatt. So, in addition to telling the stories that we want to tell as Special Olympics, right, we share story leads with so many other people. So, like you mentioned, sponsors, other media. So, ESPN is always one that comes to mind, or Fansided, who I know you're super familiar with. So,
Mhm.
we feed them stories too. And a lot of times, in my opinion, sometimes that's even harder than doing the story yourself and writing the story yourself because you have to get the information from whoever that is, that partner or the media outlet, and determine what story leads are best to give them, right? So, especially for our funding partners, right? They oftentimes have a very specific story angle in mind, and it's my job to go through, the 4,000 athletes coming to USA Games, or all of the athletes in Sona, or all of the athletes in a specific state, and see which story leads are the best ones for them, right? So that can take a lot of time. You have to be really detail oriented because you have to dig through a lot of material to get that information to share with that partner. And certainly you have to work really closely with that program's marketing and communication staff, right? Because they know those folks best. So you have to do a lot of that digging to find the right story lead, the right angle, and then support whoever it is in telling that story, right? So that is also a big piece of my job and what I do for a bunch of different events and a bunch of different partners. Yeah, good question.
Yeah, when I did the global messenger thing, and they're like, "Yeah, we need you to talk to all these sponsors." I was like, "Man, there's a lot more people than I thought." Because I'm just playing sports, like USA Games or just a local event, and they're like, "Yeah, we need you to talk to these people." And it's like, well, how many people are there? And then just it's a crowd of people. I'm like, "Oh, okay." So, but yeah, it's definitely something I learned when I went to DC the first time. But so would you guys say like now the Special Olympics is on like like a global aspect and everything? Like maybe people are starting to take Special Olympic sports more as like real sports now than more like when even when we all started, like for example, when I started playing, I think my brother there wasn't really unified schools, so my brother and I just really told everyone, he has a game. It was literally in our hometown. Like you don't even have to drive. Plays twice, show up once. And would you say like now people are starting to see us more as like a real sporting organization as like the social media aspect has grown? Uh, Whoever
Well,
wants to
Rachel,
go first.
you've been involved way longer than I have, so
She said it, not me, so I'm just
speak
making
to
it clear.
the
This
evolution.
is harsh. I did not know I was signing up to get roasted this morning.
Well, I didn't do that. Okay.
You're
Uh,
gonna have to cut these parts out, Wyatt. We cannot have this out in the world. Um,
uh, Way back.
no, I 100% think it is Wyatt. And I think it is for a variety of different reasons. One, the organization is older, right? So we have some of that kind of built up street cred, for lack of a better term, with other sport organizations, with the general public, etc. I think there's other pieces as well that go into that. So we have really strong relationships with other sport organizations too, right? So USA Basketball or the PGA, or we have all of these sport organizations that partner with us in some way, shape, or form. And by associating with those other sport organizations, we gain a little bit of street cred, right? We gain a little bit of legitimacy. The other piece, and this goes to the folks in Nebraska, in Texas, in Ontario, et cetera, that are doing Special Olympics programming, right? They're putting on Special Olympics sports training and competition, is they are doing it at a much higher level than perhaps they did it 55 years ago, right? So your training and competition opportunities, whether they're at the local level, the state level, or the program level, national level, world level, they're high level sport training and competition opportunities, right? We take sport really seriously.
Mm.
Certainly, you see it at a World Games, and that's a great opportunity for us to showcase that on a global platform. And certainly, thanks to partners like ESPN, that's broadcast on a global scale. But I think at the end of the day, the reason that we're taken seriously as a sport organization is because we take ourselves seriously as a sport organization. And we hold very, very tightly to sport rules and making sure that competition runs in a way that it would run at a Paralympics or a five-ring Olympics, right? It's not just because it's Special Olympics, it's never less than those
Mm.
other organizations. And I think that's the most important thing in terms of us being taken seriously as a sport organization. Certainly, long way to go, right?
Mm.
We still have
Yeah.
room for growth, but I do think it has come a very long way. And the amount of time I've been involved, but certainly since 1968.
And if you think about the caliber of sponsors, of global ambassadors that we have supporting our organization, they are also credible people and credible organizations. So we kind of build off of each other in that rapport and also in just the popularity of Special Olympics. So it's exciting to see where we'll go from here.
Yeah. Yeah, and definitely like you guys like to do marketing and interview us, like put us on the biggest stage. I remember when I got to meet people from ESPN. That was just really cool to like, oh, like they actually do cover our sports and everything, and then see everything at the World Games, the Winter World Games. That was pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, have you guys ever seen like the 30 for 30 short on Special Olympics? Yeah, that was pretty cool to watch to see like what it started to where it is like now. So, so like covering sports and doing marketing, is there any athletes or stories that you like covered or heard of that really touched you like personally and just made an impact on you? Whoever wants to go first.
Wow. That's such a hard question because Rachel and I and so many others in our organization, we have the best jobs in the entire world because we meet the best people. And I think each athlete or coach or unified partner that you meet has such a special story and a unique perspective of Special Olympics. I know for myself, I really don't think I can pick one story that I would call my favorite. I actually I guess I'll pick one from the Winter World Games that just happened in Italy, but I wrote a story on a skier from Florida, and she had never skied on snow before. So she was learning how to ski on a tarp on a sand dune in Miami. So just the ingenuity and creativity that athletes are bringing to their training and the spirit that they have, which is, they are up against people that have been skiing in the Alps their entire lives, and then to come to the table with the skills that you've had to work on yourself in a really unique, unexpected way. I just think that's so powerful. And yeah, I wish I could tell you all of my stories.
Yeah.
You read some of them online. So, but there are just so many, and yeah, that's the beautiful thing about what we do is that we simply it's pretty impossible to pick a favorite because each one means so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, as Madeline was talking and as you asked that question, Wyatt, I had like seven or eight that immediately popped into my brain, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think one that has been, again, it's hard to pick a favorite, but one of my favorites, we'll go with that,
Right.
is a story that I wrote at a Sona softball championship a couple of years ago. It was about a team from Canada, the LaSalle Windsor Stingers, and they were, I mean, to this day, they're still some of my favorite humans in the entire world.
Mm.
I watched them play a, divisioning game, and they got their butts kicked. I mean, it was nowhere even close, right? And they and to their credit and to the organizers' credit, right, we were still trying to figure out where people should be in divisions, right?
Right.
So this was not who they were going to compete with at the end of the day, but they did not do well in this game. But to a man, every single human, coaches, athletes, family who were sitting there spectating, they were so incredibly positive during this time where they were losing very badly that I just couldn't get past that, right? I just thought that was so wonderful. So I went up to the coach and I just made an offhanded comment that said, I commend you on the sportsmanship and then the positive attitudes of your team. And they were feeling a little low at that moment. And he
Mm-hmm.
asked me to come over and talk to the team and just tell them
Mm-hmm.
what I had told him. And it turned into this really beautiful story that I told over the course of the 2 days that we were there. They ended up winning gold in their division. So it actually
Nice.
worked out really well. And
Nice.
every year that they come to that event, they look for me and we take a selfie and we catch up because I spent so much time with them over those couple of days. So the story turned out great. I love the story, but it's more
Right.
about the relationships that I created with those people that I never would have met otherwise, right? I could have walked past them at the end of that game, not said anything, gone my separate ways, and the day would have been fine. But because I thought about it in that moment and I said, oh gosh, like this is so unique and this is commendable, I now have a group of friends in Ontario that I never would have had otherwise.
Yeah.
So I think like Madeline said, the ingenuity and the creativity is certainly part of it. And then the relationships that we develop with the people that we tell stories about, I mean, it's huge. It's one of the best things of our job for sure.
Yeah, I think like people, need to think like, yeah, we are competitive. Like that's my thing. Like, well, we still don't want to lose. Like, I feel like people are like, oh, you're just there to have fun. Like, well, yeah, but we still want to win. Like, come on. And I'm really competitive. But then it's just like it's like, oh, we got a next game and we can, next year we'll do better. Or just fun to play because we don't get to play as often as some other teams do. So, and like going like that softball tournament, they have more tournaments like that now. I've gone to a couple tennis ones and I've met people throughout the whole US and I have their numbers and we catch up like once a year at this tournament. So it's kind of cool to like see that happen throughout all sports. So going through this Special Olympic journey, where do you guys want to see Special Olympics in 5, 10 years from your fields? Madeline, you want to go first?
Oh, okay. I guess from a recent, maybe personal reference. So I've been doing unified kickball and I also did unified volleyball last year. And this is really my first time since kindergarten competing in a sport. And because we don't have other unified teams in the area, we're competing in a community recreational league.
Oh,
So the
cool.
teams that we're competing against, they are not unified teams.
Hmm.
So I think just having the experience of being on a Special Olympics team and walking onto the court or onto a field and seeing kind of the reactions of the other team, like they're not entirely certain like what Special Olympics is, like how tough they should be competing, what the unified model looks like. I think there's still a lot of disconnect in how we share the field of play
Hmm.
and the level of respect that we show each other there. So I think at its most basic level, I would love to one day be on a kickball team where maybe we're playing in a recreational league and there's no misunderstanding there.
Right.
It's we all came to play the same sport. It's not about your ability or what you're able to do because I'm certainly horrible at kickball, but it's more about the spirit of the sport. So, yeah, I would just love to have that be recognized a little bit more, just in the places we go and the people that we compete against.
Yeah.
This is such a hard one because I think at the core of Special Olympics, the idea is that eventually Special Olympics will be everywhere, almost to the point where you don't even recognize that it's Special Olympics anymore, right?
Yeah.
Our work is done to the point where people don't even need us to tell them some of the things that we do because it's just the way that the world works, right?
Hmm.
I think ultimately, if I look at it from a marketing and communications perspective, right, I would love to see us 5, 10, 15 years down the road being talked about in the same breath as five ring Olympics, as Paralympics, as the NCAA,
Mm.
and not just once every 2 years at World
Yeah.
Games, but every day, right? There is so many amazing sport moments happening across our movement every single day of the year that I would love to see us get covered in that same way. And then on the flip side, right, that, in the non-sports arena, our work in education, our work in health, our work in leadership, having those successes celebrated and promoted in the same way that successes in those areas outside of Special Olympics happen, right? So, athlete leaders having all of the same leadership opportunities and being celebrated the same way that any other leader would be celebrated, right? So I think having us on the same platforms, on the same playing ground, same level as some of these other organizations, and these other sport organizations would that would be amazing to me in the next 5 or 10 years. And I think we'll get there. I'd like to think that we will,
Yeah.
for sure. We've made such huge strides in the past, 20, 25 years, and
Mhm.
certainly in the 50 plus years we've been in existence, that I think it's fully possible.
Yeah, I do too. What you guys said was right on the money. Like, playing sports, even outside of Special Olympics. I know some athletes, including myself, like sign up for leagues and like you're the only one with a disability in it. But then if you keep signing up every year, it's not like they don't think it's weird. You just kind of show up and play. And then like I know some athletes that they coach like YMCA teams and like stuff like that. And so yeah, just trying to get ourselves out there through Special Olympics and then on outside too, I think that helps as well. So well, thank you for coming on the Brave and Intent podcast, you guys, and sharing your stories and your journeys through Special Olympics. So thank you.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Mm.
Yeah, thank you, Wyatt. This was awesome. We are very, very excited to see all the growth that you've shown in the past, however many years. And the sky is the potential for you. Like, I mean, just really and truly, I see a lot of big things in your future. So we're
Mm.
excited to be a part of it.
Oh, thank you.